everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the
Geek Buddies. Hey!
We're recording this episode less than 12 hours after we finished up at a park, or a little bit over 12 hours after we finished at the Disneyland park and had a blast going to all the rides, hitting the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, hitting the Avengers Campus, and assorted other places. So we are going to be chill and taking it slow through this episode, but we're going to have some fun talking about all the things that we're going to be talking about here. But let's introduce ourselves. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel. I'm a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies, and the least tired of the Geek Buddies.
Oh wow! Listen to him. Should we screen grab his text from this morning, Shannon? But anyway,
the text that I sent from the gym.
Yeah, well, you said you're exhausted. Yes, that one.
Yeah, and then I went to the gym.
This is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor. And I have no shame in saying that I feel like I am the most tired because I got up the earliest and I got home the last.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Listen to him. Listen to him.
A little tired. You hear my voice.
Real hard letting your Tesla do the driving there, buddy?
Oh! Shots fired.
I have to keep my eyes on the road.
Eyes on the road, son. We're gonna get into all the stuff going on here. We're gonna talk about Paul Walter Hauser and Fantastic Four. We're talking about the Chris Hemsworth article at Dinner Been Fair, talking about Thor 4 and his apologies and previewing what he's gonna do in Furiosa. We're gonna get into some trailers, and of course, our main topic. For those who don't know, the way we handle the show is we each bring up a geek news item. As I just mentioned, 3 of them. We talk about it amongst ourselves. Then we take a break and jump into our main topic. And our main topic is going to be May the 4th, talking about all the stuff going on around Star Wars and talking about our time at Disneyland there at Galaxy's Edge. So stay tuned for that later on in the show. But if you want to skip to it, the time codes are in the description of the video right now. So you can skip to that and enjoy that conversation and swing back and talk about the rest. All right, Michael. Take it away. What do we got first?
Well, first, Paul Walter Hauser is having a fantastic year. Not only will you be able to hear him soon voicing embarrassment in Inside Out 2, but it has been revealed that he has been cast in the upcoming... Oh, wait. Also, he was also cast as Ed, Frank Drebin's partner, in the new Naked Gun reboot from Paramount. So both of those... not too shabby, but it has also been revealed that he is now cast in the upcoming Fantastic Four movie, along with Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, Eben Moss-Bacharach as Ben Grimm, and, as was recently revealed, Julia Garner coming aboard to play Shalabal, a female version of the Silver Surfer. So, not much is known beyond that. Not much is known about what he will be playing, who we will be playing, how it fits into the bigger tapestry of what this Fantastic Four movie is shaping up to be. But good actor, good cast, good vibes. What do we think? Gentlemen, what do you think of the casting? B, how is this whole cast shaping up for you? C, any guesses on who he might be playing? Johnny.
Well, and he's also sorry.
No, go ahead, Shannon. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Shannon. I mean, you are the most tired after doing all that driving. Why don't you go ahead?
Oof. It's gonna be a spicy one today. Go ahead.
Well, and he's also playing Chris Farley in Josh Gad's biopic about Chris Farley as well. So he is having a heck of a year.
Yeah.
Paul Walter Hauser is a great actor. I mean, he was in. He got. I think he won for Blackbird, the Apple Limited series that he did with Taron Egerton. So he's a terrific actor. So knowing that he is being added to already this very, very stacked cast is great news. As to what he's playing, we were discussing this yesterday whilst in line, and they said it's a mystery role. Yeah. My first guess was Herbie, the Fantastic Four's, robotic assistant. And then I was quickly potentially corrected, depending on what the announcement is, with a with a different role that I will let these gentlemen take credit for, because I certainly didn't think of it. But Paul Walter Hauser, again, he's a really great actor. He's very, very funny, but he also does have he gives a very layered performance. Again, if you watch that Apple Plus series Blackbird, you see someone that is able to really mind the emotional human pay dirt. I mean, he's really, really good. So it will be very, very exciting to see who he's playing. My guess is with Herbie, obviously he's a good voice actor coming in Inside Out too. But the suggestion that these two had is potentially a little more exciting. I don't know. We'll see.
Johnny,
he got there. I like that he got there.
I'm sorry.
My man was struggling. My man was veering all over the road, but he parked it in the car park.
I don't have Tesla to do the podcast for me.
The time is coming. AI is coming, where the three of us will just sit around and watch our AI counterparts do the show. But listen, this is I like this idea, and this is very interesting because the timing of this and all these announcements that PWH is getting recently, the timing of it is really curious because there was speculation, and Jeff on the hot mic speculated this, I think, first, is that he was going to be the lead for the new Tarantino film, for the Movie Critic. There was a lot of speculation that he was the one they were looking at to be the lead of this one. Of course, they announced Brad Pitt, but no one's going to buy Brad Pitt as a movie critic in the 70s. It's not possible. He's going to redo his role that he had in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So a big rumor was Paul Walter Hauser. Now, he came out and said, I was on a toilet in Brazil at a Comic-Con when my agent reached out to me. I've not had a meeting. I had no idea. It doesn't mean that Tarantino wasn't circling him. It doesn't mean that the casting directors weren't looking at him for the possible lead role. Now that that film has been shuttered, all of a sudden the last three. Now, I'm not saying it's connected. I'm saying it might be. All of a sudden, these announcements of all these things that he's doing are coming out, and this is a pretty big one. And I'm excited to see him in it. I think he is playing Mole Man, and Michael let me know that other people had speculated that already. I had not seen the speculation, but it seemed to make sense to me that he would play Mole Man. Mole Man is such a big, interesting character in Fantastic Four, so much so that they used that character at the end of The Incredibles and began Incredibles 2 with their version of that character. So I know for those of us who are what? Yeah, Underminer. Underminer. That was great. So those of us who've been Fantastic Four fans, we know Mole Man is like a cool, fun, essential part of their mythology. So I think Paul Walter Hauser would bring the right amount of comedy and slight dread, if you can muster it, as we saw in Blackbird, to a character like that. So I like this idea. I think it's great for him. I think he's a fantastic actor. I got to interview him in 2019 for Richard Jewell, and he was a really sweet guy. Helped Eastwood through a couple of tougher moments, because Eastwood was up there. Really kind, considerate guy. And he's pro wrestling now as well. As if he isn't busy enough. He's literally pro wrestling in matches right now. So the man constantly works. Gotta respect it. Fantastic Four. Great pick for him. Mike?
So I'm going to preface this by saying, when Marvel says we've cast this actor in a mystery role, more often than not, after months of us speculating every character that exists in comics, Paul Walter Hauser is going to be working the front desk at the Baxter Building. It's going to be morning, Mr. Richards. Yep, got that. Yep, how's that thing going? You beat that bad guy, and that's going to be the role, and we're going to be like, oh, okay, didn't see that coming. I think Shannon's guess of Herbie is not a bad guess, but I think when Marvel says mystery role, and we've already had this piece of material released that has Herbie front and center, I don't know that really feels like a mystery. I think Mole Man makes sense because I think one of the things that's really interesting about this movie in general is because all signs point to, and it seems that it seems pretty confirmed that A, this is a period piece in the 1960s, and B, it is not in our universe. Yeah. So we're kind of going into this world where we don't have to do the origin story or this is it. You could literally open this movie the way, to John's point, Incredibles 2 does. Paul Walter Hauser could be the Mole Man in the first 10 minutes of this movie, and we could see the Fantastic Four fly in the Fantastic Car and beat the crap out of him. And the entire crowd goes wild and said, "We love you, Fantastic Four." And that's how we're introduced to them in this world, because they already exist. We don't have to go through the whole, here's the origin and here's the bad guy's origin and here's how the bad guy's origin ties into the good guy's origin. We can just dive in, and the Fantastic Four are awesome. And then Silver Surfer shows up and says Galactus is coming and shit goes down and like whatever. But so I think casting an actor of his caliber as a villain like the Mole Man, where you don't have to go into, he starts off as, Miles Moulton, and he's very angry, and then this thing happens and he falls into a vat of dirt, and you're like, you don't have to do it. It doesn't have to happen. He can just be the Mole Man. So I think there's a lot of potential there, but I also think the reality is he's going to end up being like, "Good morning, Mr. Richards," and we're all going to go, okay, that's great too. I was saying to these guys yesterday, and I don't know why, maybe I am wildly off base here, but I have a lot of fear and anxiety surrounding Captain America 4 and a lot of excitement surrounding Fantastic Four. I don't know why, but I just feel like, for whatever reason, with the choices they've made and the cast, and Paul Walter Hauser falls into this too, I just feel like everything points to they kind of know what they're doing here.
Right.
They got this. Yeah. They've been thinking about this for a long time, and this is gonna like knock it out of the park. Whereas the other things I'm a little bit more worried about. So we'll see.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Go ahead, Shannon.
No, I was just gonna say, do you think part of that optimism is this one? If this fan speculation is correct and that this does take place in a different universe, do you think part of that optimism is that this story largely will be unencumbered by the rest of the MCU? Or are you just more excited about the creative choices?
Good question.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We got in a little chat about the multiverse, waiting for Web Slingers to get back up and running yesterday afternoon. Because Web Slingers breaks down a lot. And, we were discussing the multiverse in general and how we all kind of have a little bit of a, okay, enough already with the multiverse. And I think that by having them just like, even though, yes, if they exist in a different part of the multiverse and by the end of the movie, they are more than likely coming into our universe or the MCU main 616 universe, or whatever number we use to define it. Yes, that counts as a multiverse movie. But if the majority of the movie is just this separate superhero world and they're the superheroes and we just get to have this whole adventure, and in the cosmic shit that happens at the end, they end up in our universe. I mean, that's more or less, that's Captain America. You know what I mean? Like, it's like let's just tell this standalone movie about this standalone family of superheroes. And by the end, yes, they're going to link up. So I think you might be right. It just feels like it doesn't need a lot of explanation. We're not going to have a lot of, you needed to see this, to see this, to see this. It's just going to be this movie. So that probably is a big part of it.
Yeah. Also, I think like, if you look at Matt Shakman, what did he do? WandaVision, right? And that's considered top 3 of the Disney Plus MCU shows. Whereas Falcon and Winter Soldier through Malcolm Spellman, in my opinion, towards the bottom part of the rankings of those. And I know some people like that series, and I totally respect that. But for me, I didn't. I found it to be underbaked. I didn't like some of the issues that I had watching it. And I know it was rushed. It was 10 and cut down to 6. I get all of that, right? I factor that all in. But I look at Malcolm Spellman's other stuff, and I'm not the biggest fan of it. I mean, Bel Air is a fine show. Empire sure was a phenomenon, but a lot of wacky shit happened on Empire. And so when you look at Falcon and Winter Soldier, like, is this what we're going to get? So I think you can bet. I think if you look at the odds, you'd be smart to bet on Fantastic Four coming out better than Captain America 4, and certainly hearing about all the reshoots and the issues that are going on behind the scenes and all of that. And I've heard from a couple of people who've seen some test footage that it is not good. So the concern that you have, Mike, of leaning towards believing in Fantastic Four more than Captain America 4, you might be right in the end, just your instinct rather that you're leaning that way. So we'll see. But I'm hoping both movies are fantastic and excellent and great.
Of course.
What you're hearing and what you're feeling is a valid concern to have. And the Paul Walter Hauser casting feels like Shakman knows what to do with an actor like that. You know what I'm saying? So I look forward to it. All right, well, let's take a quick break, and on the other side, we'll talk a little Chris Hemsworth action. Speaking of superheroes, right after this.
Oh, you guys, I got nothing.
Yeah. All right, let's move on here to a little Chris Hemsworth action. He was interviewed in Vanity Fair here because Furiosa is just days away from coming out. I can't wait to see it myself. And he was asked about these questions going on in his world, and he was talking about like all the preparation that he's done for this, and discussing how he's looked at taking on how he looked at now looking back on Thor: Love and Thunder. And we discussed this in line as well, Mike. We had some conversations about him and what he was into and the comments that he made, and he said that he's got some things to apologize for when it comes to Thor: Love and Thunder. And he said that they got a little out of control, they got a little caught up in the funniness of it all, and didn't really focus on trying to make this thing the best thing possible, and got lost in it. So he apologized, and I'm of course paraphrasing what he said, but he essentially apologized for Thor 4, but he is wearing a cape again in Furiosa. He's excited for Furiosa. So what are your thoughts on this? I mean, I thought it was a really nice article. Hemsworth's one of the best people out there. I enjoyed his Nat Geo show that he had with Limitless, where he's pushing himself. So what are your thoughts on this? What do you guys think? Is Hemsworth off base for apologizing here? Doesn't even need to apologize.
Well, I wouldn't say he needs to apologize. Like, I don't think anyone, is ready to light the torches and grab the pitchforks and be like, Hemsworth, you ruined Thor, because he was not the only person involved in that. Like, you had Taika Waititi, who, they were coming off a very, very successful collaboration. You had the head creative folks at Marvel who were like, well, Taika was right about the one before. Like, maybe let's let him run. But as someone who has played this character, 7 times now? Yeah, I could see him wanting to go out on a high, and Thor: Love and Thunder for a bit of the fan base wasn't going out on a high. Like, you hit this apex with Ragnarok, and you had two great appearances by Thor in Infinity War and Endgame. So I can see him kind of wanting to go out on top, and Love and Thunder didn't necessarily put him out on top. And also, as someone who is, the steward of this character, because he's played it since the MCU began, I can see like the wanting to accept a little bit of responsibility, be like, hey, we thought we were doing one thing, it didn't turn out great. So like an apology to be like, guys, I get it. Like we did not deliver on what we wanted to deliver. So hopefully we can do one more and give you all a last appearance by Chris Hemsworth as Thor that the audience deserves.
Yeah. Here are the quotes, Mike. I got caught up in the improv and the wackiness, and I became a parody of myself. That seems a bit harsh. I didn't stick the landing. And he said, I think we just had too much fun on Love and Thunder. It's always hard being in the center of it and having any real perspective. I love the process. It's always a ride, but you just don't know how people are going to respond. And it was a bit, quote, too silly. So I don't know. We debated this, but what are your thoughts, Michael?
No, I think he was a parody of himself. So I think he's
wow.
I mean, like, I'm not like, I agree with him. Like, he said it. I mean, I think like to really understand the scope of it, you have to like kind of track through his experience playing Thor. Like, Shannon's right. Yeah. He is the steward of this character, but Thor as a character, like, you think of Tony Stark, you think of Robert Downey Jr. playing Tony Stark. Iron Man 2, not a great movie. Iron Man 3, people debate, but like Tony Stark as a character has been consistently Tony Stark.
Right.
From the moment he was Iron Man to the moment he snapped his fingers in Endgame. Thor 1 and Thor 2, they leaned one way. And even at the beginning of the article, before you get to the quote about Love and Thunder, Chris Hemsworth talks about as grateful as he was to get to play Thor as the MCU was on the rise, he was kind of frustrated. Like, he would read the script and he'd be like, everyone else is getting better lines and I'm the muscle. I'm not that good. I don't get to do that funny stuff. Now, I would argue the first Avengers movie is where Thor started to be pretty funny. Yeah. And that sort of took off. But it wasn't until Ragnarok came along and Taika Waititi, and Thor became very funny. But there was still a little bit of, you open it up with Anthony Hopkins dying and losing his dad. And so there was still stuff for him to play. And then, if you remember, the Russo brothers came along to do Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah.
And Thor and Chris Hemsworth was so excited about what he had done with Taika that he was like, Thor has to be funny, Thor has to be funny. And they were like, this is the big finale. Like he just, all the Asgardians are dead. His dad is dead. His brother's gonna die in the first 5 minutes. Like, I don't know if we can do funny. And he was like, no, this is what it has to be. And they sort of butted heads about it. And the balance that they came out with, Thor is extremely funny, but particularly in Endgame, half of his humor is the dude is very depressed.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
yes, he has put on the weight and he has some of the funniest lines, and Tony Stark calls him Lebowski, and like it's very, very funny, but it's funny because he's playing like a real emotion. And I think they all got on the set for Love and Thunder, and this was my experience watching it. If you take any individual scene in Love and Thunder, it's really funny. Like the goats screaming and Thor's naked and everyone's looking at his ass, and he's got a jealous hammer because he's got his new girlfriend, the axe with Groot's arm on it. Like there's a lot of bits that are really funny, but that whole undercurrent of any level of emotion, of any level of anything deeper than this is just really funny and I'm kind of dumb, kind of disappears. I'd say arguably until that final scene where he's on screen with his actual daughter, and you're like, okay, well, this is sweet. Like there's something sweet here in this moment.
Yeah.
But I think that that was my feeling coming out of it. So when I read Chris Hemsworth say something like this publicly, which, as I said on Twitter, I think it's always great when actors are sort of this transparent and open about how they feel about their experience. I'm like, yep, that's correct. That is what was wrong with that movie. Like all of the comedy that you had could have stayed there if there had been more underneath, and you did sort of play a parody of the Thor that we have fallen in love with over these previous movies. So the fact that he as an actor is aware of that, and as the steward of Thor wants to correct that in a next movie, A, I appreciate him saying it because I happen to agree, and B, it makes me even more excited for a Thor 5 where I feel like he's going to take it very like, there's a balance. I don't want to see Thor all of a sudden lose all of that humor that has been built up because he is very funny, but I want to see that in conjunction with some other emotions. And that's kind of what I think he wants to do too.
Yeah. I mean, I as an actor looking at this, I feel like he's got nothing to apologize for, or as a retired actor, I guess I would say, I think he's got nothing to apologize for. Like yes, he's the steward of the character and all of that. And certainly I was reading today the Walton Goggins, Timothy Oliphant issues near the end of Justified, which I had no idea about, by the way. And that like Walton Goggins was the reason they were causing friction, according to Oliphant, was that Walton was like, my character wouldn't do that. My character wouldn't do that. My character wouldn't do that. And that caused friction because both of them had so much ownership of their characters, is becoming an issue. Thor, well, with Hemsworth, he surrendered, in essence, control of it because the Taika Waititi Ragnarok thing came out so well. So when, as he said, when he's in the middle of it, it's really hard to see the other stuff, because I don't think he was an EP watching the dailies and being on top of the script and all. Like, he was very happy to surrender to Taika, who he respects greatly. If you watch all those behind the scenes videos, he's very deferential to Taika. And I also think Hemsworth has something that's interesting as a human construct for himself, and that is, there's an incredible amount of insecurity amidst all the muscles, amidst all the good looks and humor and the beautiful wife and their lovely children. He is constantly saying, "Oh, I didn't get the best lines. Everyone else get the." Every actor says that. Every actor, just about every actor, thinks everyone else is getting the better lines. It's just standard operating procedure. But he's also mentions in the article how, like, why isn't the script better? Why am I not getting called by Tarantino? Why aren't these great filmmakers like Scorsese calling me up? So there's an incredible amount of insecurity here. So him saying this stuff, leaning into what people were feeling about it, I don't think he needs to do, but I think it comes from his place of like, look, I want to be good at what I do. I want people to like what I do. I want to be entertaining, but I also want to be respected. And so I'm going to say these things, and I think he means them. I just don't think he needed to say them, but because of how he's constructed as a person, because he seems so genuine, you take it from a place of like, he really feels bad about how people didn't like it, and he hopes they do better the next time they do it. And so for me, although he didn't need to say it, I thought it was a nice thing for him to say, but I think at the end of the day, he shouldn't feel bad about it. Like, that's on Taika. Taika's the one who directed. Taika was the one on top of everything. Taika was the one everyone surrendered their trust to, and in the end, Taika didn't deliver. So this all falls on Taika. And so to me, I don't think it falls on Hemsworth as much as he wants to take it on, but that speaks to his nature and that he cares about the work and cares about how people feel about it.
I mean, I think so. I agree with part of that. Like, and I think we all agree. Like, I don't think Chris Hemsworth owes any fan an apology. Like, I don't think he owes us anything. Like, when he says I want to apologize, like, no, you're correct in that the man got hired to do a job. He did the job. He's done a great job as Thor. Even though Thor: Love and Thunder is not my jam, I don't think he needs to apologize to me. I don't think he did anything horrible. He did a job, and they didn't nail it. I do appreciate, yes, there's a level of insecurity, but I think what I like about Chris Hemsworth is, and it sounds like the man has done a lot of work on himself.
Yeah.
I don't think this is coming off as an insecure actor who's just complaining and blaming everybody for everything. I think he's I
didn't complain and blame. That's you.
No, but I'm saying when you, and I'm not saying you said this. You didn't say this. I like what you said, but when you describe somebody as an insecure actor, you're describing somebody who's like, oh, I'm no good and I should get this and why don't I get this and no one's doing this, and he's just being honest about, like, we all have a level of insecurity, we all have those anxieties, we all have those fears, and the fact that he is so open about all of it is what I appreciate. That there's a lot of actors that aren't going to come out. There's a lot of actors that know they're in a movie and that movie's a piece of shit, and you're never going to hear them take any ownership over it. They're going to be like, some people like things, some people don't like things. People aren't going to the movies the way they used to. This is what's going on. So for him to just be like, yeah, you know what? I don't think we got it right. I think we were messing around too much. I think we kind of missed the ball on that. I don't think he owes anybody anything, but I appreciate hearing an actor just be honest about it. And I also think that it's dangerous to say, well, it's all on Taika. If anybody owes us anything, it's Taika. It's
I don't think it's dangerous at all to say it. Why would you say it's dangerous to say that a director who gets all the credit when a film is great, it shouldn't get any of the blame or shouldn't get all the blame when the film doesn't work? That doesn't. I don't agree with that at all.
Because any kind of, like, any movie, any TV show, any animated series, any video game, unless it's a novel, it is a group effort. There is a team effort. A director is steering the ship, but, like, we don't know what Marvel was telling Taika to do. We don't know what was happening on the set. We don't know what other EPs were saying. Like, I think everybody post Thor Ragnarok was like, what people liked about Thor Ragnarok is Thor is so funny and goofy. Let's do that more. And Taika was like, cool, I love Goofy, let's do it. And so going, that's all like if, and I mean, I'm not saying Chris Hemsworth would ever say this publicly, but to go, fans didn't like it. That's not on me. That's Taika. I appreciate the guy that's like, I think we all had a little bit too much fun. We should work harder on next time.
I'm not trying to have a bigger battle with you on this, but I think you're discounting both of those movies way too much. Ragnarok has a serious stuff in it. There is serious stuff in Ragnarok. The lies his father told him. The stuff with Hela is a huge deal.
I literally just said that. I literally said that when we were
just all funny, goofy. Let's be quick. It isn't. There's serious stuff, there's serious stuff in Love and Thunder. Jane has cancer, so there's serious stuff in both of those movies. And so I think it's not just let's turn Thor goofy.
This is not our main topic, and we could talk about this for 3 hours. But I will just say, as I was talking to, I'm not saying that Thor, the difference between Thor Ragnarok and Thor Love and Thunder is that Thor Ragnarok does have some deeper emotion to it, which is what I said a few minutes ago. But the big difference from Thor Ragnarok and Thor 1 and Thor 2 is Taika Waititi's comedy. And every one of us went to see that movie and came out and said, holy shit, that was really funny.
Yeah.
And so when Thor Love and Thunder comes out, with the same creative team and the same director and the same thing, and says, oh, wow, we doubled down on the funny. And everybody comes out and goes, that was kind of goofy. And the lead actor comes out and says, we were improvising and goofing around too much. I feel like we kind of became a parody. Yeah. Yes, that means you lean too heavy on the thing. And the fact that you did the Jane cancer storyline in a movie that is even funnier and goofier than Ragnarok is actually part of the problem.
Yes, because they undercooked the Jane Foster story. I think that's the problem with the movie. It is not the humor. I think the humor works, and I enjoyed the movie for the humor. They undercooked God Butcher, or whatever it is, the God Butcher storyline, and they undercooked the Jane Foster storyline, so there wasn't the seriousness in the same levels to balance the comedy. It could have worked, but it was too imbalanced in that the comedy was way too much because the serious stuff wasn't effective enough. And so the problem is not the comedy. The problem is the serious stuff that they didn't nail correctly in order to balance out the comedy, in my opinion.
Sure. Whether you're saying they didn't balance the comedy out with serious, or they lean too heavily on the comedy, I'm pretty sure that's the same thing.
No, I didn't say they lean too heavily on the comedy. You're saying.
No, I'm saying that.
Yeah. But I don't know. We'll table it for another day, I guess. Shannon, any final thoughts on this as we wrap up this one?
I mean, sure, but why extend this any more than it's already been extended?
I promise I won't respond. You have a right to, because Mike and I have been going back and forth. If you have a right to have some final thoughts on this, please.
The only thing I would say is when you are dealing with a monolith that is the MCU, to place the majority of blame on a director, to me, does not work, because you have people above that director who could have stepped in at any point and said, we're going too far here. Chris Hemsworth as well, because even though he is deferential to Taika does still have respect for Chris Hemsworth. And if Chris Hemsworth said, hey, I think maybe we're going a little too far here, Taika probably, and again, I don't know the man personally, but he probably would have listened. That's my guess. And in terms of the comedy that doesn't work in Love and Thunder, Sif's almost death scene, like that is an example of that comedy that did not work, in my opinion.
For you, yeah, fair point. So we don't blame Sam Raimi for Multiverse of Madness, because we've been doing that.
You can't blame him totally. I mean, he shares a little bit, but you can't blame him totally.
I blame him totally. All right, anyway, let's take a break and we'll get into some trailers here on the other side right after this.
Do 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 do.
Nice. Shannon, take it away. What do we got?
Well, today we just have trailers. There was going to be a third one, but John and Mike got into it about Love and Thunder. I'm kidding. There were only ever going to be 2 trailers. It was only going to be trailers. And our first one came out earlier this week, and this is our first look at Mufasa, the Lion King. This is from Academy Award-nominated director and Academy Award-winning writer Barry Jenkins. This is the story. It seems like it takes place in 2 times. Modern day, we have Donald Glover coming back as Simba, and we get to find out how Mufasa became the king that he eventually became. This was one of those movies that when it was announced, it was sort of like, what? Why? Yeah. Because coming out of the live-action Lion King, no one had any issues with the visuals, but the story seemed to be a pretty close shot-for-shot remake. You look at the visuals of this movie, which are still stunning, look great, and it's sort of like, why? So I'm going to throw it over to our resident Disney expert first, Mr. Michael Vogel. What did you think of our first look at Mufasa, the Lion King?
Well, as has been widely discussed multiple times when these things come up, I hate the live action Lion King, and John knows. I sat next to him in the theater, and I hate it because it's a shot for shot remake of the Lion King. Basically, like, it doesn't really bring a lot new to the table. And I would push back on the no one had problem with the visuals. It's a beautiful looking movie, but I mean, another big issue people had was this is the exact same as the animated classic, except all of the characters are less expressive because you're trying to make them look real. And there have been countless people on YouTube who have shown how you can take real looking animals and make them more expressive and yada, yada, yada. But the bottom line was, across the board, I feel like the Lion King live action movie is a less good shot for shot remake of the original, which is one of my favorite animated movies of all time. That being said, it made $1 billion. So the fact that they are doing a sequel to it is not surprising, because of all of the Disney live action remakes, I think I'd have to look at the box office numbers, but it's definitely on the higher end of success for them. Now, that being said, all of my hatred for that first movie, this may still have the problem that these characters are not expressive. But by definition, this can't be a shot-for-shot remake because it's an original story. So the fact that Lion King is one of my favorite franchises, and you're giving me this story of a young Mufasa and a young Scar before his name is Scar. I forget what they call him.
Taka.
But
yeah,
what is it?
Taka.
So the original story of Mufasa and Taka as young lions. Yeah. Now, the story might suck and I might hate it, but I'm intrigued because they don't have a movie to go, this is what we're doing. Now, they are definitely pulling from Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, the direct-to-DVD release that came out, because Beyonce's daughter is playing Kiara, and Kiara canonically is Simba and Nala's daughter. In addition to Kovu being their son from the Lion Guard Disney animated TV series. But so it looks like this is Simba and Nala have given birth to Kiara. Kiara is going to inherit the throne one day, and she is stressed about things, and somehow this ties into let's tell the story of Mufasa and Taka. So given my hatred of the first one, I am not as angry about this trailer as you might assume that I would be. I'm like, okay. And Lin-Manuel Miranda's doing the songs, which means we're either going to get some Hamilton bangers or we're going to get another scuttlebutt from the live action Little Mermaid. And that could go either way. But so like music is a big part of Lion King. There are actually surprisingly a few really decent songs in Lion King 2, Simba's Pride. There's a lot that they could do with this that could be cool. And as I've always said with the Disney live action remakes, the more that they do a shot for shot retelling of something I've seen in animation, the less interested I am. And the more they do something original with these characters in these worlds, the more interested I get. And so given that this is going to be more original, I'm kind of like, maybe we'll see.
Johnny, what do you think? The live action remakes, they've been a bit of a law of diminishing returns. Do you think Mufasa is the one to right to ship?
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating because I as Michael said, I sat next to him and Michael was calling by about an hour into the movie, Michael just started calling the scenes before they happened, which I thought was an interesting exercise for the last half an hour of the movie. And I was like, I totally get it. Like, I totally get it. That could be so frustrating. As for me, who wasn't like had seen the movie maybe twice in my entire life before I saw the live action one, it was fine to watch along, but I didn't think it was that great. This looks like a lot of fun and looks like a nice back and forth type of retelling, kind of like The Godfather Part 2, where you're getting the story of Vito while Michael is ascending to his position of power. So what is this? How are they going to handle this? I'm very curious to see it. But I like
Mufasa as the Godfather too. I'm in.
But like Barry Jenkins is a fantastic filmmaker, and so and TV show creator with Underground Railroad. So I'm very curious to see his take on it. And I was really upset to see so many of these indignant assholes coming at him saying, you're selling out, you're shilling for this. How dare you? You're such a master, an artist. Why would you do this kind of stuff? And it's like, and Barry responded, which I thought was great. It's like, this story has been a big part of my life because my kids were into it. Other kids are into, other friends' kids were into it. Like the Lion King carries is a very special part in people's lives. So to be able to contribute in his way to telling the story, and maybe he felt Favreau didn't get it right and wanted to tell this angle. And don't discount the fact that this is a black director taking on a thing set in Africa and wanting to do it right in a certain way versus a white director like Favreau doing his version, right? So maybe there's something he wanted to correct and put his spin on and do it his way. And I think that's exciting. And watching the trailer, I'm excited. I thought the graphics were incredible, or the special effects were incredible, better than the first, better than the Jon Favreau one. And I logically, because technology advances. And then you throw in Lin-Manuel Miranda. I didn't mind Scuttlebutt. I know some of you hated it.
Oh my god!
I didn't mind it.
Oh my god!
So I'm looking forward to seeing what songs we get. And I think it says something that Lynn's like, okay, I'll do the songs for this. I'm not going to do the songs for Moana too. I'm going to go to this instead. It makes me think that there's a bigger thing that's in play here, and he wanted to put his stamp on it with his music. So he felt inspired to do it. So that all leans towards it. We didn't get much of the story. We didn't get much of anything else. It was just to show us the world. And from that, I'm excited to see what more we're going to get.
I do think, look, yes, the graphic, like the visual effects look good. I mean, they're like, we're at a point where you can do a lot. The real question is going to be the acting of the animals. I mean, that's where, look, even though Jungle Book, which was also Favreau, came out prior to Lion King, some of those, like Bagheera and Baloo and some of those animals, I felt like had more expressive performances than the animals in Lion King. Now, granted, I have the I have the animated version of both, I guess, to compare them to. So I think I'll be curious to see if they took the criticisms that existed, even though the movie did amazing,
Yeah.
and really go, okay, let's kind of work the expressiveness of these characters now. People have bought into this world. People have bought into this version of Lion King. Now let's make them more expressive. Because, like, look, to your point, with Barry Jenkins as a great storyteller and director who hopefully was really passionate about what he was doing and wasn't just getting a paycheck here, telling an original story in the Lion King universe that we've not seen before. And if you make the animals more expressive in their acting, and Lin-Manuel brings the heat on the songs, it could be pretty amazing. So this might be, rather than being like, okay, here's another Disney live action, fuck you, it's doing enough of the right things that I'm like, okay, if this works, do more of this. This is original. Give me more original stories. So we'll see.
I think visually everything looked good. But as John already said, there's not enough in the trailer for us to sort of get like, all right, what is this story going to be? Because this movie is going to wholly depend on the story and the expressiveness of those characters. But Mufasa, The Lion King, comes out December 20th. This is Disney's big holiday 2024 offering, December 20th this year. And speaking of Disney, we have another Disney film that they acquired from Fox. Well, they acquired the property from Fox. It was made after Disney bought it. We got the third trailer for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. This one comes out in just a week's time. So the more marketing we see, you kind of hope that they're not throwing everything into all the trailers, because they gave away, in my opinion, it wasn't in the second trailer, it was in one of the TV spots. They gave away for me would have been a pretty big plot point, which I won't say here just in case you haven't watched the trailers. But it kind of surprised me, like, ooh, that's a thing to give away. Because I feel like that would have been surprising in the theaters. But with this third trailer, we get more of the backstory of Noah, our lead chimp character. We get to find out about his family and how he goes on this adventure. At this point, if you are not into the Apes movies, I doubt this trailer is going to get you into the theaters. But for those of us that are excited, this seems like it's going to be a pretty rich story. But Johnny, I'll throw it over to you. What did you think of our last look at Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes?
Yeah, it made me even more excited, because there's the connecting of this being a revenge film with what happened to his parents and his village gets me even more like hooked into this movie, because I love revenge movies. So I was already a fan of all the Apes movies that have come, since the James Franco one. I've enjoyed them all. So the idea of walking back into this world in the capable hands of Wes Ball, and you add in that this is two or three decades after Caesar was around, and then you have the humans looking like they're the ones being controlled by the apes and enslaved by the apes. That's a fascinating twist, which of course we saw in the original series from the 1960s and what have you. And then now you throw in this human character of May, and what we see from her in this final trailer makes me very, very interested to see what we're going to get in this movie, which I'll be seeing on the 7th. So just a few days from now. And I've already seen people went to screenings last night, and some of the critics have already posted their reactions. Very, very positive across the board. So that gets me even more stoked to see what we're going to get. So the visuals here, the action, the drama, the more of the story and the revenge aspect of this, but also being him discovering that what he's been fed, what he's been told, is a lie, and that there's more to discover. Right? And this fear of, like, if you go out into the world and you actually experience the world, you won't believe the things that we pumped into your brain growing up in this secluded area for you to believe certain things. So there's a message here that I think is really strong and powerful about educating yourself, about exposing yourself to the world, and questioning the people who fed you lies about your upbringing and construction and the world that you live in. So there's something here that I think is very topical as well when you watch this trailer. So I'm so excited to see it now in just a couple of days.
Mikey, you ready to enter the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes?
I mean, look, growing up, I loved the original Planet of the Apes series, because it was on TBS all the time, and they would do these marathons, and I would just like sit in the den and like roll through in a day on a Sunday all of them, and they get so stupid. They get ridiculous, but I loved them. And so back when Rise of the Planet of the Apes came out, I think we've talked about this before, but I was excited because I just love those movies. But it was coming out in August. James Franco was the lead, and you were kind of like, I kind of feel like this is going to be like, they just kind of dumped this movie. And I will stand by, and I see other people saying this on Twitter all the time, so I know I'm not alone in this. Those new movies, that new trilogy, Rise, Dawn, and War for the Planet of the Apes, is low-key one of the most underrated trilogies out there. It's so fucking good. Yeah. It's so good. Like, does right by the original series, and I would argue really improves on it in a lot of ways by really centering the apes in this beautiful story. The story of Caesar from his birth to his death is just an amazingly underrated trilogy. And to what we were saying about Lion King and the visual effects, it's the opposite end. The visual effects from the Planet of the Apes movies, from the very beginning, the mocap work that they've done, the digital effects work that the visual effects team did on the acting of the apes has been 100% like just perfection throughout, like brought these characters to life. Yeah. And so to see this movie coming out, like I was sold the second they even announced the movie. And I'm very, very excited. It has a lot to live up to with that trilogy. Everything I've seen makes me stoked. This last trailer made me stoked. I don't disagree with Shannon that I think there's a couple things in there that I might have been happier had they not put in there. Not going to say them here. You can go watch a trailer on YouTube. You'll probably see what we're talking about. But I'm really excited. I was nervous. I'd heard from a couple people earlier that early screenings people weren't loving it, but now it seems like people are coming out really kind of like excited about it, feeling good about it. This is like an opening night. I can't wait. I'm going to go see it. And I'm probably going to pop on a couple of those movies leading up to it just to dive back into the universe.
Yeah.
Well, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes comes out next week, May 10th.
May 10th. Here we go. It's going to be a lot of fun. Maybe we'll do a review of it, the three of us. It could be a lot of fun to discuss that one for sure. All right, let's take a break. And on the other side, we'll jump into our Star Wars May the 4th talk right after this.
Do 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 do.
Somebody promised that they were going to do the Cantina song the next time we had a Star Wars subject.
Damn.
Well, look, give him a break. He got up early. Give him a break. Well, it's happening. May the 4th is tomorrow as we're recording this, and certainly there's a lot of celebrations happening for May the 4th. There are some big sales going on, some new Funkos, some new Phantom Menace Funkos. Amazon has some stuff. There's all kinds of heroes and villains. They all have big celebrations going on for May the 4th. And we kind of celebrated without knowing maybe that we were going to celebrate May the 4th. When we know? Well, we knew. Okay. I guess we knew. I didn't know we knew. We just picked a date. I thought we just randomly picked a date, but you know what? We knew, and we ended up at Galaxy's Edge, hanging out yesterday, going through the land the first time, and I had these two wonderful gentlemen guiding me through the land of Star Wars, and it was an incredible experience. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about the Phantom Menace being reissued. I'm going to give you quick non-spoiler thoughts on Tales of the Empire, which also comes out on the 4th. And maybe a couple other things we'll talk about here in this section of the show. So shall we just dive into our experience at Galaxy's Edge, gentlemen? All right, let's do it. Mikey, what do you want to say about that experience there, man? What are your thoughts?
Here's what I'll say. So it was a really fun day. I have experienced Galaxy's Edge quite a few times at this point because I am a Disney nerd. And I know Shannon has done it as well, but it was really exciting to take John for the first time. I kind of had just not realized that in all of the time since Galaxy's Edge has come out, John hasn't been to Disney in a while and hadn't gotten to experience it. So first thing we did right off the bat was hit Star Tours, because Star Tours recently has added in some of the newer stuff. They've added in Ahsoka, they've added in Cassian Andor, they've added in The Mandalorian. And I gotta say, and this kind of kicks off my feeling as we go into my favorite of all the made up holidays that exist, May the 4th, which is sitting on look, we've discussed these shows, and we critique the things we don't like, and we talk about what works and we talk about what doesn't work. And the last season of Mandalorian didn't necessarily hit the heights of previous seasons, and although Ahsoka is one of my favorite characters, the Ahsoka series didn't do everything that I had hoped it would do. But that being said, when you're sitting on Star Tours and you're riding along on this adventure, and all of a sudden the Mandalorian and Grogu pop up to give you a mission, and then you end up on a planet with a bunch of flying space whales, and Ahsoka is there, and you fly around with her, and she says hey to R2, I get excited. Like, it just works. Like, the fun of Star Wars always, to me, at the end of the day, wins out over the things that are bad. Doesn't mean I'm not going to sit here and talk about what I don't like about Star Wars, but as a lifelong fan, seeing people get excited, like Mandalorian and Grogu popped up to tell us what our mission was, and the entire group on our Star Tours flight cheered. Everyone was I couldn't even hear what Mando was saying because everybody was cheering and was so excited to see Grogu. Like, it was just fun. And then we rode Space Mountain, which has been kind of rethemed for Star Wars Celebration into Hyperspace Mountain. Again, riding Space Mountain with the Star Wars theme playing and TIE fighters and X-Wings all around you. Pretty awesome. And then going to Galaxy's Edge, seeing the new droids, walking around the park, like stopping to see Mando and Grogu talk to some fans, taking John on Smuggler's Run, watching him have trouble flying the Millennium Falcon. And
what?
I'm just saying.
I blame my co-pilot.
And then even with Rise of Resistance, we talk a lot on this show about how people, we are old school Star Wars fans who grew up with the original trilogy. There's an entire generation of you that grew up with the prequels, and that's your main Star Wars. And even though the new trilogy has, in my opinion, a lot of issues that really frustrate me, going to Galaxy's Edge and having BB-8 and Rey tell you they're sending you on a mission, and having Kylo Ren kind of like try and pull some shit out of your brain on Rise of Resistance, like, it's fun. I'm into it. So it was a really fun day for me to see John experience it for the first time and kind of go through and sort of reflect on the fact that even though there's things I love about Star Wars and there's things that I hate about Star Wars, I love seeing people loving Star Wars.
Shannon, what are your thoughts about our day yesterday?
It was a blast. I mean, this is something that we had planned a couple of months ago, and yes, we did know that May the 4th was coming up because at Disneyland they're actually doing Star Wars Nights, which is a Disneyland. They do these events called Disneyland After Dark, where it's a hard ticket event where they have different themes, and we are in the Star Wars Nights. Now, Vogel and I went to Star Wars Night a few years ago, and it was a lot of fun. But it is very, very crowded. But the thing that I think really stands out is what the fans bring to it. Normally, when you go to Disney, you're not allowed to dress up in any sort of cosplay, but they relax that rule for the theme nights. And to watch these folks come out in their best, in their Star Wars best, it was just a blast. And during the day, we got to see a lot of folks who were there for Star Wars Nights, but they were in their costumes already. Watching John get to experience it, that's the most fun. I mean, that's like seeing a great movie and wanting to see it again. One, because you want to see it again, but also because you want to take someone that hasn't seen it, because you want to see if they react to what you react to. You want to watch them laugh at the moment that made you laugh. And so that was part of the fun. I mean, standing behind John as he was walking on to the deck of the Millennium Falcon, that was awesome. I mean, just to see the childlike glee come out in this adult's face. I mean, it was fantastic. With Star Tours, when they originally did this ride way back when, like it was the same ride again and again and again. And then I think it was when they added the prequels that they started to kind of switch it up. Am I right there, Vogel? That it may not be the same ride.
After the prequels, the big difference was digital filmmaking. Like basically the old Star Tours, if you've ever ridden it, like that giant screen used to have a giant projector behind it, and that projector was a certain level, like you couldn't do more stuff. Once we ended up having like digital projections, you could watch a digital print of something, they were like, oh shit, we can do as much as we want. And that was around the time that the prequels kind of came out. So that's when they decided to sort of revamp Star Tours and make it more of a planetary lottery of what you were going to see.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally like 3 different sections, and they can be anything at this point. So ours started off in our first section. It was the Battle of Hoth. Now the Battle of Hoth is great. The Battle of Hoth I have seen so many times, and I'm like, oh no, are we only gonna get old stuff? And then the next thing we see is Mandalorian and Grogu, and then after that we are on the planet with the Purgle. Which I was like, oh, okay, fantastic. But knowing that there is Andor stuff out there, that they do have sequel trilogy stuff out there. Star Tours really has rejuvenated itself. I mean, it's a ride that it's like, okay, the technology, yeah, it's a little dated. I mean, it's simulator technology. You're in a seat. It's not like you're in a moving vehicle that, you get now. But it's still like having that extra stuff really makes it something that you have to see. And watching John come into and this is something I didn't realize what Vogel was doing at the beginning. We had stopped to have a little snack, a Ronto roaster.
Yeah.
And then Vogel's like, oh, no, we need to go this way. So the way that Mike took us around was so we had this epic shot walking in to see the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
And getting to see John experience that was so much fun. And I do agree about Rise of the Resistance. I think, perfect world, I would love to have seen Darth Vader in there. I would love to have seen Chewie and Han in there. But the characters that we do get, even though the sequel trilogy didn't check off the boxes for everybody, when those sequel trilogy characters pop up, like General Hux, people know who he is. They know who he is right away. There is that recognition. And in terms of technology, Rise of the Resistance, that's an incredible, incredible ride. So I hope they continue to do more with Galaxy's Edge so we can see it again and so we can watch John see it again.
I mean, look, it was a blast. It was so much fun because it was a Thursday. There weren't that many people there. And we were lucky enough through Michael's guidance to get into the lightning line for some of these things. And so we were able to really kind of savor the park at a good pace and see all the stuff that we had planned to see. And for me, it was just such a joy to finally experience a land because I don't like to go to places that are too crowded. I can't quite relax and enjoy it. So the fact that it wasn't that crowded allowed me to really kind of savor things, walk around corners and see the Millennium Falcon, see the TIE Fighter, see the banners and all of that, and then go into the different areas and the Oga's Cantina, which was a blast, which I posted that 20-second video on Twitter if you guys want to watch it, and having some blue milk, which was a nice experience as well, and then the Ronto roaster was a lot of fun, and then going into the Millennium Falcon, Rise of the Resistance, the Star Tours, Spacebound, just great to be inundated with the world of Star Wars and to have these two guys like guide me through everything and just let me enjoy it with no judgment and have fun with it. I thought was a great experience, and it was a great way to fall back in love with Star Wars again and understand why people love it as much as they do. And, I get shit sometimes for my opinions or whatever. And people sometimes come out because you don't know Star Wars. Well, I can't tell you every fucking ship and their designation, but I can tell you that I love this franchise. And when I walk in and get to experience it all over again, and as Shannon said, and he showed me a couple of videos because the son of a bitch took videos of me when I wasn't looking, where I'm regressing to being a child and enjoying it all over again, because those are the things that you keep for yourself. I think just showed me the magic of the franchise all over again. And so it was just so much fun to experience it and go through all the different things. And I can't wait to go back again. And hopefully on a day just like that, where it's not too crowded, and enjoy the rides all over again and because the ride, some of the rides you get different experiences depending on the situation. Mm-hmm. So I like that you have multiple times to ride something and get new things out of it. So yeah, 100% a blast. Great to go with these guys, and the rest of Disneyland Adventures Campus and all the other stuff was a lot of fun. But I mean, I had to clock out at 5 p.m. My body couldn't take it anymore.
I will tell you, it is funny. It is funny watching The Outlaw because it is not a slow degradation. It is a where are we going next? This is great. Awesome. Hey, I'm going to go get some ice cream. And then he comes back from the ice cream and he goes, boys, I'm done.
Yeah, that's
boys, this is it. We're going to ride web slingers and I'm going home.
I'll tell you how I avoid major physical injuries in my life. When my body says it's time to go, it's time to go. And I don't push past it. I don't try to lift that extra weight. I don't try to push that extra bit because I know that's what leads to injury. And walking up the boardwalk to get that ice cream, and my lower back was like, you're done. you're done. I knew immediately coming back that it was over. So
there we were meeting, like the three of us split up to go each get our individual little snacks, and we were meeting in front of Mr. Potato Head by Toy Story Midway Mania.
Yeah.
And Mike and I got there first, and we saw John before John saw us. And the expression on the outlaw's face is like, okay, he's out of gas. Wandering a little bit, slightly confused.
And my friends know me so well that they'd had the discussion while I wasn't there about like, is he done? Do you think he's done? Yeah.
He's done. He's done. He's finished.
But it was great. And I got home at a good time, and I fell the fuck asleep immediately. And I feel great today, even though a little tired, but it was well worth the experience. And so it was a lot of fun.
Do you guys have any other plans to observe this most sacred of geek holidays this weekend?
Oh, yeah. I would recommend Tales of the Empire. I got the screeners and watched them this morning. I woke up early to watch them this morning before they went out, because they stopped them at a certain time for those of us get them early. And I can tell you right now, if you're planning on doing Tales of the Empire tomorrow, you will be very, very satisfied. It was fantastic. All 6 of them were excellent. 3 in a block, and it fantastic. So I highly, highly recommend you guys watching it. And so if you don't have plans for it, put it on your list for things to do tomorrow as we're recording this for May the 4th, and enjoy it. Yeah, for sure. And I might do Andor all over again. Shannon, do you have any plans?
Well, I have to work in the morning.
Okay.
But after that, my hope, because my wife leaves for a business trip Sunday morning, my hope is that
New Hope?
No.
Maybe we'll watch Rogue One tomorrow night. But then after she leaves, I'm going to continue the celebration into Revenge of the 5th, and that's where I'll watch Tales of the Empire. Tales of the Empire on Revenge of the 5th seems like totally appropriate.
That totally makes sense. My bad on that one. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I am going to wake up tomorrow and probably watch Tales of the Empire right away. I'm very excited. So like Tales of the Empire is my morning coffee pre-gym celebration. Then the gym will happen, and then after that I am going to have some brunch and go see Phantom Menace. In theaters with some friends. So Phantom Menace has been re-released in theaters, and for a movie that is not my favorite of the Star Wars movies, I am oddly excited to go see that thing again on the big screen. So I think going in knowing the things that I love about Phantom Menace and the things that I don't love about Phantom Menace is going to make it a very enjoyable experience. So I'm excited about that, and then we'll see what else happens. But like I was saying before, I mean, I think that Star Wars fandom can be tricky. And some of you have a lot of opinions, and some of you get mad at other people who have a lot of opinions. But I think in general, even though it's not always great, it always is magic to me. So I am excited to continue on celebrating this ridiculous holiday and seeing what else we come up with to celebrate.
Yeah, we should talk about The Bad Batch season 3 finale wrapped up, in case some of you might be wanting to watch it. I really enjoyed the final 2 episodes. The final episode is 50 minutes. Nice to have a half an hour episode show deliver with a finale that's longer than any of the episodes. That hasn't been the case with Disney Plus usually. So the fact that it happened to have a 50-minute finale, I thought was a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a good ending, and that there's a coda for those of you who may not have seen it. So stay after there's a final scene that kind of hints at something bigger, possibly down the road. So for me, overall, I thought it was a fitting ending, and this was the best season of The Bad Batch, and it had all the promise that you were hoping to see in the previous 2 seasons fully realized in this final season, and it was a good send-off, in my opinion. Did you guys get a chance to watch the finale? What are your thoughts? Non-spoiler thoughts. What are your thoughts on it?
Shannon?
Well, The Bad Batch has some really great characters, and they have some really great moments. I don't think the promise was ever fulfilled of what they could have done. Okay. But do I write it off as a total loss? Of course not, because I mean the Crosshair story alone, Crosshair had a great 3-season story, even though he was not as present in the previous 2 seasons. He did have a great 3-season story, and Omega started as a character that was like, the Star Wars kid thing. She ends up evolving into a very interesting character that maybe will make the crossover into live action. We'll see. I mean, I think you end on enough of a high that that character, maybe this is not the end of that character for us. There are some great moments. I think ultimately this was something that they had an idea of the end point, and the path that they took wasn't as dynamic as I think it maybe could have been. But ultimately it was a Star Wars show, and I watched every single episode, some of those episodes 2 and 3 times.
Oh, there you go. Mikey, your final thoughts on the Bad Batch and the finale here?
Yeah, this felt like I remember being a kid in middle school and high school and reading like the Star Wars novels.
Yeah.
And the Bad Batch reminded me of like, sometimes you read a Star Wars novel and you're like, this is a fucking banger. Holy shit. They did this. Leia's riding a Rancor. Oh my God. And then there was other ones where you were like, that was fine. That was a fun adventure in this universe that I enjoy. And I think that I agree with what Shannon said, that I think like by the end of it, I got to the end of Bad Batch and like they got enough right that I'm like, okay, cool. I like these characters. I think Omega did turn into a really interesting character by the end of it. Yeah. I think Crosshair is by far the best thing about all 3 seasons of Bad Batch. I think that it never fully delivered on the promise. I think it's beautiful. It's a gorgeous show. It's clearly made with a lot of love. But by the end of it, I went, okay, this is a perfectly fine entry. It is not something that I'm like, that was egregiously bad. They really whiffed that. But it's also not something that I'm going to go back to the way that I go back to, like, say, Rebels or that final season of Clone Wars. Like, there's certain parts of Star Wars that I'm like, I love this. There's certain parts of Star Wars that I'm like, I don't ever need to see that again. And then there's certain parts that I'm like, that's fine. And I like those characters. Like, and that's kind of how I feel about this. I think that Clone Wars was at its best when it dealt head on with what was happening with the clones. Whether that was the clones realizing that the Empire was not great and they were all deserting, the Empire slowly phasing out clones and bringing in stormtroopers, the way that the Empire looked at clones as like old tech that had been outdated. Like anytime they did that, and that was most of Crosshair's storyline, I think the show got real interesting. And anytime it was more of the Bad Batch and Omega kind of just going on an adventure of the week that didn't really have a lot to do with other stuff, you were like, it looks great. Characters are cute, but I didn't really love it. So I think they had the opportunity to do more, but at the end of the day, kind of to both of your points, it ended and I'm like, yeah, I like these characters just fine.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap up this discussion with one question. We'll keep it short. Keep it short, your responses here, Susan. I know we're well over an hour. May the 4th, Star Wars. Where are we now? What is your feeling about the state of Star Wars? And what do you anticipate the future will be? And if you can keep it to 60 seconds.
How are we supposed to keep that to 60 seconds?
I don't know. We can find a way.
Shannon, you go first. I got to think about this.
I'm excited to see the Acolyte. I'm excited to see what the first look of Skeleton Crew is going to look like. Yeah. And I'm very curious which Star Wars movie we're going to get first. It was supposed to be the Rey movie. Then it was the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. We'll see. Star Wars is a part of my DNA as a fan. So Star Wars is something I will always love, even if not every single entry isn't my favorite. But the idea that we are going to get Andor season 2 is another thing that makes me really excited.
Yeah. Michael, can you do 60 seconds? You need to go.
Nope.
I'll go.
I got it. Okay, you go.
Yeah, I'll go. We did a great conversation on the Jedi Way, which is out now, the episode, talking about me and Kevin and Laura talking about Star Wars and where it's at right now. And the way I look at the sequel trilogy is you talk about these things like someone's got to go through that wall first, and then everyone comes after, right? Something's got to crawl so they can run. And to me, the sequel trilogy was that thing they had to crawl so that everyone else can run. What we've had, this like rebirth of Star Wars, this new golden age of Star Wars, I think has been overall enjoyable. Yes, I like the Bad Batch. Yes, I like that final season of Clone Wars. Yes, I enjoyed Andor and Rogue One. Yes, I enjoyed parts of The Last Jedi. Loved The Force Awakens. And the books have been fantastic. The High Republic has come out, which a lot of people have loved. The new video games mostly been received really well. And so yes, there have been stumbles, there have been mistakes, there have been issues. Certainly, the less said about Rise of Skywalker, the better. But overall, I think this has been a fun thing to see. And I'm excited to see what we're going to get with Acolyte Skeleton Crew and the Mandu and Grogu movie. I hope the Rey movie gets they pull it off, because the last thing I want is the people who hate Star Wars and claim to be fans. I don't want them to have more ammunition to say it's woke and all of this nonsense, when Rey is an excellent character and I love Rey and I want to see more with her. So that's my feelings now. I have hope, and I see more people want to get involved in it creatively. So that gets me excited.
I think the biggest thing that Star Wars has going for it is its fans. And I think the biggest challenge to Star Wars is its fans. I think that Disney and Lucasfilm are so nervous about this very opinionated, very vocal fan base that it sometimes prevents them from taking big swings.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that Star Wars needs to move forward is big swings, not little swings, not let's tell the same story over, but like, look, I think Grogu all by himself is one of the best things that has happened in the past decade for Star Wars, because even though, yes, it's little Yoda, the questions that come up as soon as we have a brand new Yoda who's 50 years old, and is he as powerful as Yoda? What's he going to be like in 20 years? What's he going to be like in 50 years? Like, the imagination starts to run wild with Grogu stories that could take us into the next 30 years of Star Wars. And so that is proof of, like, you bring a new element to Star Wars. You bring something new. I think Disney and Lucasfilm are so good at the Star Wars aesthetic. They can make any TV show and any movie look and feel like Star Wars at this point. So we know what it looks like. We get the universe. But giving us new stuff in that universe, really challenging our ideas, doing what Bo DeMaio's doing on X-Men 97 right now, like really using this universe and these characters to go, we actually have something to say. That's what needs to happen. And I think there's a little bit of fear and a little bit of trepidation about stepping forward. And so I think that with all the love that's there, like, let's show them the love, challenge them when they make mistakes, but let's as a fandom embrace some of the new stuff that's out there. And to John's point, I think that includes the new trilogy. I think the new trilogy kind of ends on a thud, and there's a lot that I don't like about it, but I'm happy to take Rey, Hux, BB-8, Poe, Finn, Kylo. I'm ready to take all of those characters that are still alive and tell more stories about them, because I think they all have the potential to be great.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. And I don't want people thinking I'm a shill. There's certainly legitimate criticism to be lobbed at Disney for and for some of their handling of Star Wars. But there's so much great stuff that's also come out, and you got to balance it out in your mind. Yeah.
We certainly don't need that biker gang from Boba Fett to come back. They can stay.
No.
Keep them them in the back. Keep them in the back. They're good. They're good.
Yeah. No Boba season 2, no Ahsoka season 2. Yeah, well, it's coming, but hopefully they'll improve. Yeah, go ahead, Shannon. You were gonna say?
No. When you said no Ahsoka season 2, I was like, I don't know. That's not gonna.
Yeah, it is coming. At least that's the plan. All right, well, there you go. That's our conversation here for this episode of Geek Buddies. Thank you all so much for joining us. We appreciate it madly. Shannon, what do we have to tell?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's @geek_buddies. On Instagram, @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's @Shannon_McClung. On Instagram, Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is @MKToon. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is @The Rocha Says.
Mikey?
And if you would like to, we would appreciate it if you smash that like button below. Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Subscribe to the Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing content he's got there. Leave your comments below, maybe a little bit more articulate than I am right now, and let us know what you thought of this week's episode. What do you think of Star Wars? What do you think of Thor? What do you think of Chris Hemsworth? What do you think of Fantastic Four? Let us know everything below in the comments. If you're listening to us on the podcast feed, go ahead and leave us some stars and comments so we go up in the rankings and more people can find us. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you all so much for joining us again, and enjoy your May the 4th. May the 4th be with you and your Revenge of the 5th. And we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode here of the
Geek
Buddies.